I'd like to represent Nevada in Congressional District 2. I'm Joe Hart, news anchor for KRNB News 4. I'm proud to have the privilege to serve as moderator of tonight's debate. The special election is less than a month away, and tonight should be a real good opportunity for our viewers at home and those who have turned out in person tonight to learn more about where each candidate stands on specific issues and get to know them as the election approaches. Joining us tonight are the candidates: Republican Mark Amodei, Democrat Kate Marshall, Independent American Party candidate Tim Fasano, and Independent candidate Helmuth Lehman. I do want to thank you all for coming down and participating tonight. We really look forward to a lively, interesting debate. I think our viewers will really benefit from it. We also have a distinguished panel of guests who will pose questions to the candidates tonight. And joining us are, behind me, Karen Griffin, a morning anchor and political reporter for KRNB News 4. And Jeanette Damon, host of the political talk show To The Point. And we also have Dr. Eric Hersick, political science professor from the University of Nevada. We appreciate that. Again, Mike will have the cards up to give you time cues. You'll have 2 minutes for your responses, and when you see the yellow card, 15 seconds. The red card means you're out of time. An hour of debate, and we're looking forward to getting things started. Before we turn it over to our panelists, I'd like to start by just asking each one of you to explain what you would like people who are watching the debate to come away to learn from tonight. Kate, we'll start with you.
Good evening. My name is Kate Marshall. Thank you for joining. As state treasurer, I invest your money. I've made money on your investments every single quarter I've been in office. I've come in under budget, and I refuse to pay raise because times are tough. Last legislative session, I got a jobs bill passed that allows me to invest in companies that come here or expand here and hire Nevadans. The earnings from those investments go to K through 12 because education is important, not only to our children, but to our future. I'll fight to preserve Social Security and Medicare because while we need a balanced budget, we can't do that on the backs of our seniors. Ultimately, this election is about you. Whether you want someone who will go back to DC and add fuel to the fire, or walk across the aisle to bring solutions to the problems of our nation. You'll hear more tonight, and I thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Mark?
Thanks, Joe. And thanks to the sponsors, VFW, AT&T, also to the Reno Sparks Chamber folks. On September 13th, you folks get to decide who you're going to hire to finish out Dean Heller's term. It's a historic time for Nevada, and it's one of the most important things that we're going to do in terms of getting ready for the 2012 elections, and also in terms of figuring out what we need to do to start getting out of this hole we're in, economically and jobs-wise here in Nevada. When you make that decision, I hope that one of the things that you think is important is someone whose life experiences and roots in Nevada extend across a lifetime. That's going to be phenomenally important when you talk about potentially starting on September 14th in a busy season where there are all sorts of issues that are waiting for whoever's elected on September 13th. I hope that you will seriously consider somebody who doesn't think that the problem is that government is too small, someone who doesn't think that we don't have enough regulations, and someone who doesn't think that we already have enough taxing and spending. I look forward to your evaluation, and thank you for allowing me to participate here tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Tim?
Good evening. First off, I'd like to thank the VFW Post 3819, KRNB, and 99.1 for hosting this event. What is so important about this event is that we need to show the diverse views and the diverse experiences of all the candidates. The electorate in this state and in this district deserve to see what their candidates look like. They deserve to see what their experiences are, and they deserve to hear what they feel is best for Nevada. This is probably the most important election in my time here in Nevada, and I've been here for 21 years, because we are in a period of time which there's a lot of turmoil in our country. And we're going to be going into the elections of 2012, so we have to prepare for some very, very difficult decisions that have to be made. That's where the electorate has to stand by and decide who is best in 2011 to carry on in 2012. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Helmut?
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to thank everyone else when I have my 2 minutes at the end as opposed to now. A lot of you don't know who I am. I come from the private sector. I've had leadership positions across many different industries. Most of them have made me accountable for saving jobs and for creating jobs. I have a master's degree in finance and in business strategy, and I have a master's degree in public policy from the University of Texas. I'm running because I believe that both our parties today are under the thumbs of Wall Street and under the thumbs of self-serving leaders who don't give a rap about today's citizens and the common man and woman across the country. Worse yet, us Nevadans deserve better than that, and our children deserve a much better future than the one we're going to hand them if we don't change the way we do business and if we don't change the way we think in Washington. Thank you.
All right, thank you to all of our candidates, and we're going to start things off with our panelists. We will talk first with Professor Eric Herzig from UNR. Go ahead.
This question is for Mr. Amodei. The Bush tax cuts produced one of the lowest decades of job growth in American history. Deregulation during the period led to numerous scandals and contributed to economic collapse. You, in your television ads, argue for further tax cuts and deregulation and say this will lead to jobs. Why would the Amodei plan have any more success than what did not work for the past decade?
Well, thanks, Eric, but I disagree with the premise in terms of what did not work for the past decade, because George Bush wasn't doing the last decade all by himself. As a matter of fact, the last 3 years, we've tried some very different things. We've tried a lot of regulation, we've tried a lot of spending, and we've tried a lot of the federal government trying to be the answer for every question. And if you think Nevada's in better shape right now than it was even 3 years ago, not that there isn't plenty of blame to go around. There's Republican blame as well as Democrat blame. But if you think we're in better shape now than we were 3 years ago when we embarked on this course, I would respectfully disagree with you. I think part of the answer, what we need to do, is what we need to stop doing. We need to stop talking about how we're going to more aggressively regulate. We need to stop talking about how we're going to try to tax in a recession. And we need to stop talking about how we need to spend more when your gross national product is about equal to your debt. Those are all things that have produced phenomenal upheaval and incredible instability in the private sector. And as somebody who believes that the ultimate health of your country is a function of the private sector, I think we need to have the federal government stop doing what it has been doing for the last 3 years. Thanks.
A similar question for Ms. Marshall. You said your first bill in Congress on your webpage would create tax incentives for companies that actually create jobs and diversify the Nevada economy. In the past 3 years, the federal government has lowered taxes to incentivize the economy and spent over $1 trillion, adding that to the national debt. Why will your job program have any effect different than what we've experienced in the last 3 years?
Well, thank you for the question, but of course in the last 3 years we haven't had a jobs bill, have we? And you feel that here in Nevada with slightly less than 13.5% unemployment, but the highest unemployment we have in the nation. And part of the reason for that is because the tax policy doesn't motivate the economic behavior. That is to say, it doesn't help people to hire. Here in Nevada, we have the wrong tax policy. And you can thank my opponent here to my left, Mr. Amodei. He passed a tax increase, $1 billion, but the major part of that tax increase was a payroll tax. So every time you hire someone in Nevada, you will pay more taxes. When I talk about using taxes to motivate economic policy, what I'm talking about is giving tax cuts when people hire. This will help our small businessmen. And you and I know that small businessmen make up the bread and butter of our economy. At the same time, use your tax policy to close those loopholes and those subsidies which aren't helping us. The most valuable company on the stock exchange today is Exxon, and yet they have subsidies for blending ethanol, for being an oil company. But you, if you're a small business owner in Nevada, when you try to hire someone, you'll pay more taxes. These are the wrong priorities. Our tax policy should show our priorities, and our priorities must be jobs here in Nevada and here in the country. Thank you.
Professor, I would say I got some more questions, but Mark, would you like that 1 minute rebuttal?
You know what, I appreciate that, and thank you. I'll go ahead and take it. You know, the 2003 session is something that a lot of people have paid attention to in this election cycle. The problem is some of them only pay about 10% of attention to what really happened. Here's a couple other facts for 2003 when you're talking about who did what to who. First of all, my opponent was a registered lobbyist in 2003 and lobbying for some of the positions that, quite frankly, she is criticizing right now. But here's the rest of the story on 2003 really briefly. I was the person who, with some of my Senate colleagues, fought against the creation of a business income tax on receipts and fought against the creation of the Nevada IRS. We were successful in that. Our bill also included a cap on spending, which if it had been enacted, would have gone ahead and prohibited a lot of the problems we have now. Two more things. Carson City Chamber of Commerce in 2003 takes out a full-page ad at the end of the session thanking me for my efforts on behalf of business. And finally, my colleagues,
Mark, I got to cut you off. I'm sorry.
State senator.
We have to stick to our time.
That's good.
Tonight.
Thanks.
Professor Herzig has a federal debt question for the other two candidates.
This is for Mr. Fasano. Politicians love to talk tough about the debt. And during the debt ceiling debate, various analysts and opponents of raising the ceiling argued there was enough revenue being collected so that America could avoid technical default by paying bondholders but not paying some other obligations. If the U.S. were in a situation that payment priorities were to be selected, what are the top 3 obligations that you think the federal government should honor, and what bills would you defer?
Well, first off, thank you for your question. I would have to say Social Security, Medicare, and military spending. We have to pay for our military up front because it's important to protect our nation and pay the people that do this work. Just like in Social Security, I believe that this isn't an entitlement, which I hate the word entitlement. This is a program that people have paid into all their life. They should have the payments of Social Security. Now, as far as what I would not want to pay, first off, I would start cutting what we're spending on foreign governments. We are giving too much foreign aid in this country. We need to start cutting back on that. We have a lot of other programs that are the problems in this country, and if we don't start getting a handle on these programs, it is going to become a burden which we cannot overcome.
This question is from Mr. Lehman. You advocate a right to a roof policy concerning the renegotiation of home mortgage rates. Can the United States afford another right? And how will this not expand government involvement in the economy and further skew the U.S. housing market?
And further
skew the U.S. housing market.
Right to a roof is a concept that is catchy and it's something that people will remember. What it means is that we shouldn't be throwing people out who have missed 3 or 4 months more. Every state law is different. Right now we've got a couple of things going on with ICAMP, for example, the federal program, which is not working, and MAP, the Nevada program, which is not working, which is since a couple months ago, it's a failure. And why is it a failure? Because both HAMP and MAP, the banks can opt out. They can voluntarily participate or not participate. So if you are able to apply and are accepted and eligible for assistance, if your bank, the bank that holds your mortgage, does not buy into this program, you don't get any relief. I'm talking about getting the banks at the table, the CEOs at the table, and making demands on them that they either play ball or they will start facing some legislative and administrative remedies that they'll do so. We have given the banks and Wall Street $2.5 trillion in the last 4 years, and we have not seen a dime of it come back to the people in this state or any other state. Florida is suing the federal government. We are about to sue the federal government. If Friends go first, Supreme Court goes to the Supreme Court in Washington, and New Jersey and Arizona are also suing the federal government over the same plan. I don't want families kicked out on the street because someone lost a job, someone got sick, had cancer, couldn't